You will.
As well.
We're live.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. What a beautiful day outside. Thank you for being here despite all that nice weather, coming out of the winter. Although I'm pretty sure we'll have one more snowstorm left, but let's not focus on that. So welcome to the March edition of the Garden State Java User Group meeting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Redlick. I am one of the co-directors here at GSJUG, along with Barry Bird and Chandra Guntur. And we have Paul Sires, but he couldn't make it tonight, so he's the fourth. We have our advisor, Diane Liberance. So I always screw that up. I'm sorry. So let's get going. Before we get started, I usually do my few slides where we thank our sponsors, talk about what might be new in the Java community. We'll introduce the students, and then ultimately Chandra Guntur, who will be our speaker after our students have done their lightning talks. And then at the end of Chandra's talk, we'll talk about some upcoming events coming up for us. We have some exciting news and some new things on the agenda. And then a quick look at what our friends, other Java user groups are doing this month or next month. And we'll talk about the IntelliJ idea giveaway later. So, all right, so our first sponsor is Azul. They are a downstream distribution of OpenJDK, and they were the first ones to implement their version of Zulu that had the coordinated restore at checkpoint, otherwise known as crack, with their downstream distribution. So you can check that out. DevNexus, that is coming up in less than a month. It's in Atlanta, Georgia. We do have tickets, or discount, I should say, discounted tickets available. So please, if you're interested and you have the means to go, it is one of the more premier conferences that has been around for about 10 years, 15 years, something like this. So that's April 9th through 11th. We'll talk more about that later. JetBrains, of course, provides the licenses every month that we can give away. And then, of course, the Eclipse Foundation and Jakarta EE, they provide crowdcast hosting, which we've used originally, but since then we have gone over to Zoom and YouTube. And then our memberships include the Jakarta EE ambassadors and Jakarta EE and microprofile working groups, and also the virtual JUG. So the Jakarta EE ambassadors, it's an independent grassroots group of people committed to moving Jakarta EE forward through active community participation and advocacy. These are the list of folks on the Leadership Council. And Jakarta EE will be coming out later this year. So to that end, milestone 2 of Jakarta EE 11 is on the brink of being released, maybe within the next week or so. The specifications you see listed are the ones that have to have everything in order as part of milestone 2. Everything is released in waves. And also, too, more importantly, coming up a week from today is the release of Java 22. And then the discount code is right there. If you want to take a screenshot of that, or take a picture with your phone. And I believe I sent it in my email to the distribution list. All right, so without further ado, the lightning talks tonight will consist of Mohammed Mir, who's going to present on abstract syntax trees, or ASTs. Jared Simonetti will present game development using Löve. It is an umlaut, so you got to pronounce that right. 2D and Lua. And then Joseph Holzman will present New Jersey Resource Finder mobile application, the importance of human-centric tech solutions. I think Jared's going to go first. And so...
Should I introduce the students?
Yeah, that would be an awesome thing, actually.
Okay.
Since Barry is the professor here.
That's right. I'm the big cheese.
That's right.
All right.
That's an awesome idea.
Here we go. All right. Jared's going first, right? Yep. Of course, I have to brag, right? When did you start coding?
Maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
December, right?
Yeah, December.
And now it's,
Oh, wow.
now it's mid-March, and never coded a line of code before that. He's in my advanced functional programming Haskell course. Haskell scares everybody. Jared's in there. He's doing a bang-up job. I think he got 100 on both exams, right? So here he is.
Thank you very much, Barry. So I'm gonna exit out of this really quickly and go to my own presentation. So what I'm going to present on today is game development using Love 2D and Lua. This is kind of what inspired me to start doing coding, is to create games, create things that are interesting for me and interesting for other people to be using. So overview, I'm just going to go over what is Love. Could also be pronounced Löve, but primarily people, when they're going over their YouTube tutorials, GitHub links, and everything on the internet, people address it as Love or Love 2D. Why is Love used? And what are the merits of using Love as compared to other gaming frameworks or engines? After that, I'm going to go over a demonstration of what the code looks like and how you can make it yourself. So what is Love? Love is an open source game development framework that is written in the C++ programming language and manipulated and utilized using the Lua scripting. You're writing all of your code in the Lua scripting language while everything in the background is being run using C++. It is primarily aimed towards the production of 2D games, hence the name and moniker Love 2D. And creating 3D games is fully possible and has been done, but has very limited documentation and is therefore primarily used for 2D games. It is designed to allow for the development of video games from the ground up with the added support of pre-designed physics, graphics, and audio processes that are made easier with a framework rather than just using raw code. So why should Love be used over other frameworks and engines? In creating a game, choosing a program in which you will be coding is among one of the most important steps right after the game you're going to be making. Based on the type and scope of the game, some programs can fulfill their purpose far better than others. What Love does better than a great number of programs and frameworks and engines is that it allows the user to have an exceptional amount of control over the processes that occur and has a very, very snappy and quick feedback between you editing the code and having a direct impact on the gameplay. You won't get many issues with dependencies as everything is predefined within every bit of code you're creating. There is nothing that's automatically being done for you, but as a consequence, you get to control everything that exists within it and what is happening. All exports can also be simply made using a zip version of Love. This is also available with many different engines and frameworks, but with Love, it is incredibly quick, incredibly easy to use, and allows for the ability to interact with other people creating the same project and do so in a fast manner. So, Love, a powerful tool for learning game development. Besides being capable of creating games, it is also capable of teaching the user how to create a game and how to develop the code necessary and learn the fundamentals of what it means to code, what it means to code something that abides by all the aspects of it, whether it be the gameplay loop or creating a state engine that makes multiple different processes run at different parts depending on what part of the we're at. Because it's user-friendly scripting language, Lua, Love provides an accessible means to learn how to code and develop games. It is organized in a means that, again, as I already said, nurtures the idea of the gameplay. The three primary functions that are used within Love are love.load, love.update, and love.draw. These are three primary processes that are going to occur in every single game and must be done independently at different parts. There are additional built-in functions that can also be used to influence gameplay. Examples being love.mousePress or love.keyPress. There are many different functions like this that are pre-established, and new ones can be created using the Lua language with support from Love 2D. With this said, I want to show you all some code and what it actually looks like to be programming in Love 2D. So I first want to establish that Love 2D is incredibly simple to just start working. All you have to do is create a folder and slide it into the shortcut for Love. I already did it, so I will not do it here. After that, you can use something for editing code, such as Visual Studio Code, which has extensions that allow you to have compatibility. So with this done, very simple process. After you've gone through all of the problems that come with installing Visual Studio Code or another programming program that you'll be using, you can start working on your game. So first, I wanted to show you a very simple slide this up. One of the most simple lines of code that you can be creating, which is this. This behind the presentation here says love.draw, and in that it has a function or it has something that's being called love.graphics.rect. And this is established. There are several arguments here that are doing many different things within the Love 2D framework. One is establishing what is the shape going to be look like. Is it going to be filled, or are there going to be lines surrounding the box? What is the X? What is the Y? What is the width? What is the height? What this simply sums down to, and you can probably even get what's going to happen, when you run the code, you make a rectangle. Wonderful. It's a box inside of a box. That's all you're doing. However, extending from this, you can then start developing outwards. So what I already mentioned is that the three primary functions that are used are love.load, update, and draw. So here is, up here, there is a function love.load. And down here is love.draw again. But this time is defining a list. And inside of that list, you have many different variable values. You have X, Y, width, and height, which are pre-established and then are being repeated here. This is the exact same process as before. The only difference being there was another additional thing added. Love.graphics.setColor. This is just another function within the program that allows you to change the color of the scene. This time it is making a square that is red, and it is being done with values that can be modified more easily and with more flexibility than just hard coding the values into the draw function. Extending further from this, let's add the update function. So everything is being done the same here, except there's one change. This one change is that now there's a value, love.mouse.getPosition, which is getting the position of the mouse actively, a support from Love 2D framework. And it is then checking for whether it is within range of the X and Y. And based on that, it is going to move towards the direction based on adding a speed value, which is pre-established up here, and multiplying it by delta time, something that is involved with the love.update function. This keeps speed the same no matter what your frame rate is, because it's checking the actual live time as the framework is running. So, and the other thing that I changed is that it is now going to change its color based on its proximity. Once it is within the range of the box, as in its X is within the X and the X plus the width, and the Y is within the Y plus the Y, the Y and the Y plus the height. So what this looks like is now you're going to have a box that will follow the mouse and turn green once it finally hits it. I created a buffer of approximately 10 pixels so that it doesn't just stutter whenever it hits them. These will be constantly switching back and forth based on the delta time times the speed moving past the original point. So one more step on just fleshing out what it means to be making this and how you would easily make multiple of these objects is to create a separate document. This is being called shape2d, shape, in which you're placing all of the functions into their own identities. So in this case, you are creating a function shape init, update, and draw. Init will be loaded, update will be updated, and draw will be drawn, all within the load, update, and draw functions. So I'm actually going to comment out this section because it's not relevant yet, and I'm going to uncomment these. Hopefully this won't break. It won't. So this is doing the exact same thing before, but all of the code is being stored in its own document in a reusable manner. So if I'm going to undo the comments I did before and show you that you can actually create some almost artistic-like effects in which you're creating multiple different shapes with their own pre-established speeds based on your initialization of each square. This is basically just 6 or 7 different squares that I created with a different speed and with a different color that they toggle to. So beyond this, these are just very, very simple graphics. So what are some of the more complex things that Love 2D can do? That would be physics. Handling physics by yourself is not fun or easy when you're trying to translate reality into a game. So what physics allows you to do in Love is it just makes it that you don't have to put too much effort into making things work extra. There's still a lot of effort that has to be done, but it's far simpler. So in this case, in order to create a physics object, you need to create a world and then establish the pretty much gravity values, one for the x-axis, the other for the y-axis. And you have to set the length of the meter, which then can be compared to the gravity. And true, I think, is can objects sleep or something like that. It's not a relevant thing in this point. So for each object, you need to define a body, shape, and fixture. The fixture, which pretty much attaches the body and shape together to create an object that maintains itself. And you can then call functions on to manipulate or get data from. So in this case, I'm creating the ground, a square, and 2 blocks. The ground being a static item, and the rest being dynamic, meaning it can move. There's much to see here, but I'm just going to show you how it runs. So from this, we've created an object, a pretty much player object, that you can then affect using your mouse buttons. Make it move, you can make it jump. It is affected by friction, and it can affect other objects. Furthermore, I added the function where you can press a button to spawn new objects in the world, which you can see all interact. So in order to do this, it's a lot of hard code. You have to do this for every single object, which seems like a pain. But you could still extend all of these calls into their own separate documents, similarly to how I did beforehand when I created the shape document, shape.lua. So in this case, many people will do this online, and there's many people who will do this for themselves and share their code on GitHub, the worldwide location for finding people sharing their code because they're doing something for themselves or for others. So in this case, I found a open source GitHub page, which is called Winfield. Winfield, I will actually open this up to show credits. This is under the MIT license, SSYGN. I believe the user is A327. It's in my credits, I'll show it later. But what Winfield does is it compiles all of these different calls into a very simple call. Create a rectangle collider with the X, Y, width, and height. And all of the other values such as friction or restitution are all preset, and the body, fixture, and shape are all bound together using the call of new rectangle collider. So what I did was I basically did everything again, but now it's much more simple. And I didn't even draw shapes here. I just called the function world::draw. And this method is this method is pretty much just drawing the scene with lined boxes for every collider that exists. And you can tell it's actually much smoother here because they did many things behind the scenes to make things feel better for the player. On top of this, I did the same thing. It has all the same functionality as the previous thing that I created, but it required fewer lines of code, less work for the user, and it is relinquishing control, but you get to choose as much control as you have based on your desires in the project. I'm going to present on one more additional thing, which is simply just how animations, so one of the core things of developing a game, the graphics, can be done within Love2D. In this case, I didn't even create one for myself because creating a quad, which is basically when you take an image or sprite sheet and cut it into many pieces, is a grueling process, and I did not have the time to work on it. However, what someone who created this library, this open library called Animate, made these quads automatically. All you have to do is establish in your load function to create a, let me find it. I'm just gonna search for it. So you need to create a grid, which you set the value of the width, height, as well as things like buffers and spaces between the grid items. And then you check it with the image width and height in order to get a sprite sheet. The sprite sheet I also used from an open source on itch.io for free. And this sprite sheet is being divided into a grid with the dimensions of 37 by 50, or pixels. And doing that allows you to create an animation, which you can also manipulate with different values within the update function. So this animation is defaulting to the idle animation. It is able to flip in both directions for the running animation, because I defined that to be a thing you can do based on which button you're pressing. I apologize, my code broke at this moment. Oh, no, it's back. But the simple animation can be done just by declaring some things that other people have posted on their libraries. You can also handle this all on your own using Love2D's functionalities. However, based on your experience, you do not need to do everything yourself. And the amount of control you have is completely your choice because the amount that Love2D allows you to do yourself or allows you to just utilize the tools that already exist. That's all I have to present within this. I'll go back to my presentation just to show the sources, but that is all. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
I think you're going to get asked for this money. Oh, wait, stop.
No, I don't need the mic. What's your favorite video game? Is there a video game you had in mind when you started?
What's your favorite video game?
So my current goal, for at least by the end of the year, my hopes is to create a game similar to that of Slay the Spire. It's a game that inspired me to create a game. It's actually a very simple game that doesn't require physics, but it's a game that I've put many hours into and I've enjoyed, and as a result, want to create one of my.
Anything else? Thank you again, Jared.
Should I do the Zoom meeting?
Let's see what's gonna happen now. Who's next? Joey, do you want to use?
Do you want
Yeah,
to use my computer?
yeah.
My screen? By all means.
We're gonna have a brief transition period here, and then I'll introduce Joey.
I'm gonna email these to you. No, you want my email?
You may want to
Yeah.
not share your screen
whatever
while
one.
you're doing that.
Would you like the lunch?
Sure.
Jared, you can stop sharing your screen while you open your email.
Oh, yeah.
Now we should have time for a commercial break, right?
I feel like we should write a credit.
That's right.
This presentation brought to you by Dr. Pepper.
Product
Yeah,
placement, restricted product
Product
placement.
Yeah, that one. That's
Are we all set? Let me know when we're ready to roll.
all good.
Yeah.
I should be able to zoom in.
Yeah, that's perfect.
You got with the trap bag, it's kind of hard to.
All right, now, I get to introduce you.
Yes.
Move aside. Joey Holzman, been a student of mine for a few years, right? What you don't know is that I'm going to, this project that I just found out about that you're doing, I just found out about it, what, 2 weeks ago, something like that, and sent you an email and said, you gotta come and talk to us about it. This project, what you don't know is I'm gonna corner you later on, like in a week or two, so that you can write up a proposal to talk at a conference this summer in Illinois. And
No way.
yeah, oh man, this is just really, okay, all right.
It's really cool.
I am introducing Joey Holtman.
Hi. All right, can we see? Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about the delay, but yeah, my name is Joey Holtzman, Joseph Holtzman, but I like to go by Joey. And I'm presenting this application, this mobile application that I've been working on really for the past half year as a passion project, as a side project. And it's called the New Jersey Resource Finder. And it's essentially a mobile application that I'm coding in React Native and Django. And it essentially aggregates all of the homeless and housing resources in New Jersey into an application so that they're easily accessible by mobile. So Drew, I'm a senior, I'm a rising senior. I graduated in May, and I study computer science, and I also study international relations. And these are two relatively separate fields of study. And in the computer science, I've always loved the software engineering side of it. But also in international relations, that deals a lot with human problems. That deals a lot with conflict. That deals a lot with resources or lack of resources. And so I'm always trying to find a way of like, how can I merge those two areas of computer science, of software engineering, and then fulfilling some sort of human need. And to me, this project, albeit it's not a global project, it's New Jersey, but this kind of is a step in the right direction of finding a nexus between those two things. And it's kind of, I call it human-centric technology, where the user is not seen as so much of a burden, but rather the application is made specifically for the user. This application, by all intents and purposes, is ideally, upon launch, will be free. There will be no monetary cost to use this application. The reason, obviously, and I was asking this myself when I was researching, why aren't there, why isn't there some sort of centralized list or aggregation of homeless and housing resources in New Jersey? It seems like something that maybe like, the government over in Trenton should be doing, or at least some nonprofit. And it's just not, this is not to be completely free. It's not very profitable. The return on investment of making the application, of developing it, of maintaining it, is more times than not going to be profitable. for a government, for an organization, for a company. So I feel like that's why there hasn't been some sort of centralized, place where you can find all these resources, particularly in New Jersey. Luckily, on a federal level, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has graciously, in 2019, developed a resource locator, except the problem is that it's terribly inaccessible. I think it was last updated in like 2019, so the information is old. It's missing a lot of current resources, and it's just terrible to use. Like it's really hard to use. You can't search for anything. You have to zoom in on the map to find anything. And you can use it on your phone, but it's really janky and it's just kind of anachronous. It's out of touch and it's hard to use. So what I tried to do here is to take data from there and use it, develop a REST API. So I can call the data from the Housing and Urban Development Resource Locator, which is a website. And then I can pull that into an application. And then people can view that on there. Also integrating the Google Maps API and a custom GPT chatbot. So let's see. I just have some screen. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So just a couple screenshots. So again, this application is meant to be free. The accessibility of this application, I want it to be as accessibility as possible monetarily. The great thing about the development of technology is more people now have smartphones than ever. So having an application, a free application that people can use to find resources is not unrealistic as a means of dispersing that information. And so that's why React Native has been really cool to build this app in. Because if for those who don't know, I'm sure some of you may have used React or React Native or a framework like that. But in React Native, you can code in JavaScript or TypeScript, and you can code for both Android and iOS, and it automatically converts it into their respective native components. So for example, if you're coding just in Android for an Android application, you would have to use Android Studio, or if you were coding just an iOS application, you would use like Xcode. But with React Native, I can code this application and it automatically converts it to its native components. So that's really cool. That like blew my mind when I figured that out. And the syntax is really simple. I think it's very intuitive, like the components and everything. So it's really exciting. And so yeah, the idea is that they would be able to make an account or not make an account. Because another part of accessibility, in my opinion, is data privacy. And then this app basically allows you, I want it to be as straightforward as possible. What are you looking for? Affordable housing opportunities, homeless resources, elderly, disabled, or special needs housing, your local public housing agency or authority, or your closest housing and urban development office. And you would think that all those would be really easy to find online, but they're really not. Like even the housing and urban development site does not have all of this information, much less have it all in the same place where you could easily access it. So that's what this app aims to do. And then example of the homepage. The Google Maps API as an accessibility measure, I think is really cool when you really think about it. The ability to see exactly where something is and automatically go to Google Maps and direct you there. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's really, really cool. And it's in a lot of apps now, like DoorDash or what have you. But I mean, when you apply it to something like a resource locator or directing people to resources that they need, it has really, really cool applications. So in this screenshot, in our area right now, you can see that the Madison Housing Authority is 5.4 miles away from our current location. You're able to click on the banner to get more information. You're able to call them. You're able to directly email them. You're able to copy their address, and then you're able to open Google Maps with the directions to that location. And all of that information is stored in the Housing and Urban Development's resource locator. Except I wish I could maybe I'll show it at the end, but it's just, it doesn't look like this. It's a lot worse. You can't, no, only one thing at a time shows up. You couldn't see all of the options at one time, much less how close they are to you. So this is my attempt at trying to make it a little bit more accessible and intuitive for users. You can also filter the resources based on what you need. So let's say you might not need affordable housing opportunities, but you might need to find your local housing office. Then that would show up first. You can also query based on resources that are closer or farther away from you based on a specific distance. And yeah, it's just the goal from a UI UX perspective is to make it as intuitive and easy to use as possible. And then one of the coolest, you know, and I haven't finished, you know, implementing this, granted. Let's see if I can. But this is an example of the custom GPT AI chatbot that I'm going to implement in this application. So very recently, OpenAI released the ability to build custom GPT chatbots. And basically what you can do is you can train a GPT chatbot to do something specific. You can train it on specific information so that it can relay responses based on that information. So for example, you could tell it, you know, pretend you are a salesman and you're trying to sell me something. And then the chatbot would do just that. My idea, why don't we train it on all of the housing and urban development data that we can pull off of their locator? We train a chatbot based on that, and then we implement it in a mobile application. And that's like very new. That came out maybe like a couple months ago, that functionality. And so when you think about it, that presents a really, really incredible opportunity, you know, for people in need, for people who, you know, might not have the ability to say, I need this, this, and this. I need housing, I need food, I need to know where I can cash in my food vouchers. Where can I do that? And instead of getting on the phone with someone, maybe at City Hall, they can simply talk to the chatbot, this custom GPT chatbot, and that chatbot will relay that information in, you know, simple syntax. And of course, it can interpret whatever the person puts in there, and it can spit back out information tailored to what that person is asking. So that's one of the really cool things, I think, is you know, the application of GPT and training it on data, and then using that that GPT that is trained on that data to help people in need. That is one of the coolest things I've ever heard of. And so when I thought about it, I was like, okay, we have to implement that. So I'm very excited to be working on it. And so I suppose to wrap up, you know, this is definitely still a work in progress. I've made a lot of progress on it, and we'll continue to do so until you know, hopefully after I graduate in May. Definitely a passion project, but I think it's a really good, you know, it's a really good thing to think about, is the application of some of these technologies and the power that those technologies have when you implement them as an application, as a web application, as a mobile application, and how those technologies can forward, you know, social good and can be used to better society, not for the sake of some return on profit, but for the sake of it genuinely being really helpful and helping an enormous amount of people. So that's my project. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Yeah. Oh, you said that your application grabs some information from our site. It's a process integrated in your mobile application, or you have some backend for that.
Say that again. The how
backend.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's written on Python.
Django, yes. Django, the backend Django is written in Python.
Okay. Do you use any clouds for hosting?
Yes. So I'm planning to use AWS, Amazon cloud hosting. I haven't really, you know, gotten out of the development server yet for that, so I've yet to implement that. also that could end up costing a lot of money, so I have to figure that aspect out because I am just working on this by myself. But yeah, the plan is to eventually deploy the backend on AWS or Google Cloud or something like that.
So what I was wondering is, have you looked into the cost that it would take to have it maintained on the App Store, whether it be on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's more expensive to maintain it on the Apple App Store. Like right off the bat, they charge like something like $100 developer fee or something. But also Apple has a lot stricter rules on the App Store for like what your app needs to have. You know, it has to meet certain privacy standards and data standards. And Google Play just isn't as stringent as that. So certainly would be more difficult to you know, maintain on the Apple App Store. And of course, I think I'll run into more problems as a developer, fully, you know, fleshing out like you know, the data privacy aspect of it. Like making sure like logins are secure and oh, one thing I forgot to mention is like you know, I hope to also implement something where you know, an organization that provides some sort of need or like a, you know, homeless org or something can you know, insert themselves into this app, like sign up for it, and then they would show up on the map. So there's some you know, data stuff that I have to figure out still that might, you know, cause problems with specifically the App Store. But yeah, it's certainly a consideration.
I totally get the second question, but I was wondering, have you considered just using placing all this onto a website first to test whether you can get the practical uses, implementing ChatGPT, implementing the Google Maps functionalities in order to have a lower cost version of it? I know your specialty is within mobile app development.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I've definitely thought about it. Because I can code in React as well, you know, React Native. So deploying it in a web context would definitely, you know, be possible. So yeah, honestly, like I think I'll get to a point in testing where that might be necessary. But I haven't hit there quite yet. Like I'm still managing to test everything pretty well through Expo on VS Code. So it's pretty good so far. But I definitely probably will do that in the future. And ideally, like this would be accessible on the web at some point as a web application, anyways.
I mean, that does seem like the most accessible resource you would have.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you again, Joe. And now transition time, Mohammed, you gonna come and plug in your?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have the Zoom?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, all right. What? Yes. In the meantime, I'll sing a song.
So Jack, we did have a product placement from YouTube about sharing your slides. Is that possible?
Like sharing them onto like a Google sharing them? I can do that right now, yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah, let's see.
Like, we can email it to.
Yeah, we can,
I'm going to disconnect it.
if you email to info@gsjug.org, then that way we can distribute it.
Okay,
We will get that.
I will help.
Okay. Yeah. I know on YouTube we were frozen. I think, are we still frozen?
I don't think they are.
Somebody said, okay.
What you said.
Well, also, if the person from YouTube view this, I can also share the direct source code for the podcast.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, keep the bottom check.
I still not working.
And now I'm gonna do this, and you go to share screen, right?
Yeah.
No,
that's true.
Yeah, no.
Oh, the host disabled one. I'll do it. Nope.
Oh, Scott's here to fix it.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, you have everything put it.
So Scott walked in late, Scott, one of our leaders.
Wait,
Now you can.
This is Thunderbolt, right? But why am I using my own phone?
Yeah, you don't need.
I never got it.
I was waiting for Barry to do like a song and dance in between.
Oh, okay. Now you can share your screen.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so now you wanna mirror instead of.
Oh, yes, the old mirroring trick.
So
but-
how would I,
So the settings,
am I right here?
isn't this better?
This, yeah,
Yeah, so.
Zoom is capturing my screen.
Screen's over there.
Where's my mouse?
And if you scoot over, I can do that for you.
Yeah, if you could please.
No worries. It's something I have had, where's the mouse?
Yeah, I don't even know what's happening sometimes.
So your mouse is up here. No, it's here, okay.
Yeah.
Just click settings, and you go mirror,
Yes.
if I can mirror, and show screen mirroring. And there should be an option to always show, you can change that
Okay.
later,
Yeah.
and then, screen mirroring displays. You can just wear it well.
I mean, it's showing my screen right now.
Yep, now you're all set.
Okay. So
Wonderful.
now I should.
Now you share screen.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, that's lovely. I need to introduce Mohammed. Mohammed, you've never been in any of my classes.
I know.
Shame on you. But Mohammed is running TEDx here
Oh, yeah.
at the university. And when I say running, I mean running. This is, getting, this is gonna be an important event, right?
Oh, it is. Oh, it is.
Absolutely. No,
Absolutely.
no. This is big time. So,
It's, we have a very special guest, speaking at that event.
don't mention any names.
Oh.
All right, okay. May I introduce Mohammed Mir?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mohammed. I'm going to be giving a presentation about abstract syntax trees or ASTs. I do want to preface this entire thing by saying I'm a math major and not a computer science major, but ASTs have shown up in some of the things that I've been interested in. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about them in case, people not know so much. Yeah. Oh, okay, we're gonna figure that out, but let's take a step back and talk about. How do I progress this? Yeah, it's this. Oh, no, okay.
We're experiencing the old Apple beach ball of death.
Oh, yes.
Right. Right.
Oh.
It's more convenient, we can try to pull it up from there.
Yeah, you could, I mean,
We have some.
All right. You can pull it up here.
Yeah, I could email it to us. I emailed it to you.
Email it to me.
I did email it to you.
We got this. It's me, but I'm not-
So let me read.
Oh, wait. You're still circling there?
Yeah, that's the weird part. I don't know why I still.
I have an idea. Why don't we
You
save the
export
best.
this PDF and then
What?
full screen PDF instead of PowerPoint. That could help.
Why don't we save the best for last and we'll have Chandra give a talk? Okay, and then you can reboot in the meantime.
Yeah.
Everybody will be happy. Chandra. Here's a man who needs no introduction.
Gonna, while he's getting ready,
Wait, what grade is he in?
he's gonna, yeah. He's gonna do my usual.
Here you go.
But so while Chandra's getting set up here, I wanted to first of all thank our 3 students at Drew University here for taking the time to present with us, and as a way of saying thank you for all 3 of you who have a license to IntelliJ IDEA. We also have some swag, which is a micro-profile T-shirt, which I happen to have stuffed here. So please see me. I think we have enough left over from earlier this year or late last year. And also we have a Garden State Java User Group coaster and the sticker, and also a sticker for micro-profile and for Jakarta EE. So thank you again for that. So yeah, we'll get back to Mohammed after Chandra's done. And so Chandra, like Barry said, he needs no introduction, but I'm gonna yap anyway. So Chandra has been a regular attendee and a frequent contributor to the Garden State Java User Group since March of 2018. He is a technologist in the financial services industry since 2003 and has been programming with Java since 1998. Chandra was selected as a Java champion in March of 2019. He's a Java user group leader, helps one of the largest Java user groups, which is the New York JavaSIG, one of the friends of the Garden State Java user group, and a founder leader at the Garden State Java user group. So so Frank has been running the New York JavaSIG since 1996. That sounds about right. We started in 2001, so we're not too far behind them. So that's a good thing. So let's see. So Chandra conducts code workshops and code katas on core Java features. He's a frequent speaker at Java user groups and technology conferences, including Oracle Code One, Oracle Code New York, QCon New York, DevNexus, DawsCon, which is in Canada. It's an all virtual conference, and GIDS in India. Chandra holds a bachelor's degree in technology, electrical and electronics engineering from Sri Venkateswara University. Did I say that right? Not bad for an old man.
Not bad.
So, anyway, so oh yes, so yes, thank you for all your help, Chandra. It's great to have you as one of our co-directors. You know, we started this crazy project in what, almost 4 years ago.
4 years ago,
So,
right in the nick of COVID.
oh, you have a
Do I need a mic?
Yes,
oh, geez.
and you need not to drop it.
The audience on YouTube enjoyed that. All right, let me know if this is good enough. Can people hear me? Can everyone in the room hear me okay? Okay, first, before we start, round of applause for these amazing speakers who've already spoken, and for Mohammed. Enjoyed it. Awesome. And it's very nice to see younger generation of people come out and speak so eloquently and with passion about topics that they are interested in. So thank you for what you're doing. Please continue doing this and encourage more of your friends to do the same. I enjoyed it. I hope the rest of the audience did as well. So without much further ado, I'm going to start with what our talk is about today.
Are you screen sharing?
Not yet. I will be screen sharing in a bit.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Why don't
Yeah,
we screen
you do
share?
it.
So, if you don't mind.
What's that?
And you'll see 2 pictures of me on the screen. That's my alter ego. That's my caricature online. and
That's the
social
real
media.
Chandra.
That's the real Chandra. No one knows this face. Everyone knows the caricature. Am I? Good
Yeah.
to go? Share screen.
If you take off your glasses, we'll have no idea who you are.
Yes. All right. I'm going to share my entire desktop. So any horrible pop-ups that come in between, please pardon me. I have no clue where they're going. All right. So I'm going to start here. So today's talk is a little bit of cheat. In my title, I call it void main, but my talk is actually titled Your Java Isn't the Same. There's a sort of nuance here. Void main was supposed to entice people to come in and listen to what the hell I'm talking about in terms of Java and why void main. But the original talk is called Your Java Isn't the Same because the sense of this talk is to take an application that was written way back using Java 8, and I say way back, although a lot of people here use Java 8 even today, written using Java 8 and how to lift and shift and convert it into a Java 21 based application. So a huge change, a lot of changes happen. However, code written in Java 8, or for that matter, in older versions of Java, still compiles and runs, even if you use Java 21. That's one of the best benefits of Java. Java is backward compatible for most part, right? Let's ignore the for most part. Let's just say Java is backward compatible for now, right? So our talk is basically going to take a project that has been written using Java 8 and take up some features of this and convert them into Java 21. While we do this, we'll both see performance benefits as well as readability benefits. And readability benefits are extremely important when you're coding because you write code once, but your code is being read by several people, including yourself. And if you're anything like I am as a developer, 3 months after I've written a piece of code and I revisit it, I have no clue what I've written there because I don't understand it. It does happen quite often with most developers. In your professional careers, if you've not begun those, you will notice this trend. So readability matters a lot, conciseness matters a lot, and immediately getting to the point of what you're trying to get at within your method call or within your class is very important. And Java has been making strides and trends towards making this more easy for all of us. So just a very quick about me. I think Mike has introduced me a lot more than I deserve. Thank you, Mike. But my name is Chandra. I'm a Java champion. I'm a JUG leader at 2 Java user groups. I have my own website, and that's my GitHub profile, which we'll be visiting. Throughout the course of this presentation, at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice the GitHub link, which is where this entire code resides, and you should be able to browse it and check it out on your own. So I'm going to go back to the README and how to set up this project. Just the tooling that we use for this project. The initial tooling is Java 8. So we use Java 8 to build our original application. The new application uses Java 21, as is denoted by a second bullet. We use Maven. You can use any modern version of Maven. I use IntelliJ. I love IntelliJ. And I'm going to show you why. I have a toolchains.xml file. For those of you who know Maven, you should understand what a toolchains.xml file is. And if you don't worry. It's just a matter of declaring your Java versions and which version of Java you want to use when you build your project. If you don't know Maven, I have a blog on that, and I can share with you how to sort of understand and learn Maven. The initial setup is pretty simple. You can read through all this. I don't want to waste your time and mine. Just going to go into what our domain for this. How do I minimize this? Is there any way to minimize this? All right. So the domain for us today is we are going to build a conference application. So we are hosting a conference. In our conference, we have 4 different kinds of humans who attend. There are attendees, regular people who attend the conference, and there are speakers, staff for the conference, and vendors and sponsors. So there are the 4 different models of people or roles of people that we have in our conference. Attendees can be further classified as alumnus. So we have special attendees called alumnus. Speakers, we'll get to speakers in a bit. Staff will be in the future, in our code in the future, not yet. Sometime in the near future, will be extended as admin staff, security staff, front desk staff, etc. We've not made this modification yet. I'm just setting the ground that this can be possible. And then we have vendors and sponsors. For speakers, they're associated with sessions. A speaker has a session. And in our conference, a speaker has exactly 1 session, and 1 session is only conducted by 1 speaker. Vendors and sponsors in this conference get booths. So if you go to a typical conference, you'll see there are booths outside where there are vendors and they're posting their wares, telling you about their product, etc. And vendors have booths. So that's our typical setup, and that's what we have written up or coded as an application here. And what we're going to do is first take a very quick summary of how this looks like in Java 8, and then how we can convert it. The way we're going to operate this is in IntelliJ, and then of course, similar exists in Eclipse and other IDEs. We have something called to-dos, and we'll make use of these to-dos to make our changes. To-dos can be customized in IntelliJ, and they show up in different colors. And then we're going to take advantage of the visuals to understand what we're trying to do. So we have a couple of fixed fees. I have 11 fixed fees, if I'm not mistaken. I'll try to be very fast about reading through the fixed fees because we want to spend more time in the code than going through the fixed fee code itself. So we have fixed fees, let's say fixed fee 0, fixed fee 1, 2, and they're unsorted. Unfortunately, I cannot sort them. This IntelliJ, it sorts by the file, and I can't sort them myself. That being said, let's take, for example, there's a fixed fee. The first one, you'll see that it's in a yellow colored background, and it says fixed fee, change this code to Java 21. And below you'll see that it says 8, and that's a subtle hint for you to change stuff. In other places, you'll see notes, you'll see hints, and you'll see other, I guess, comments that give you visual cues into what you want to do. And all this is customizable in IntelliJ. Should anyone be interested in how to format these, talk to me afterwards and I'll show you how to do that. All right, that being said, let's go very quickly into the code itself. This is Maven. So when you write your code in Java, there are different ways in which you can build your code. And one of the ways you use is Maven. So Maven provides you build instructions that allow you to compile your code in a certain way, package it, and deliver it into where you want it deployed. So Maven does all that for you. You could also do this manually, but when you enter into large systems or in a corporate, you would prefer to have some kind of an automaton, which is driven by a script, and Maven does that. Awesome. So very quick walkthrough. You have some properties in Maven. You have some dependencies, your libraries that you need to build your code. And you have some build plugins that allow you to build your code, like the compiler plugin. You have the toolchains plugin that I just mentioned, which defines which versions of Java you want to use, where they're located, how you want to invoke them. And those are the only plugins we use. So Maven code is pretty simple here. We've not made it anything complex. And we'll directly jump into the app. In the app, our app is divided. Let me first go into the folder structure so you know how it looks like. So I have an app. My application is what runs. This is where the main method exists. And this is what launches everything else. So I have my app, and my app creates a conference. And my conference has different kinds of people that we talked about, if you remember the picture. And then you have some constants defined here. And then there's different kinds of payment type attendees can make in order to attend this conference. And then there is a session, which is what the speakers have. Every speaker has a session has a title and abstract, and the speaker name itself, right? So that is a very simple layout of the project. If I were to go to the app itself, you have a constant here, which I'll talk about in a bit. You have your main method, and this is the crux of what we'll be dealing with, right? So I have a conference, and I have a seeder. I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll come back to that. I have a conference, and once I create a conference, I have, let us say, different kinds of attributes associated with it. One thing I did not cover when I showed you the picture is attendees pay for the conference. If you notice a little red icon out there, by the attendees, that is the money they're paying to attend this conference. Speakers get t-shirts for having spoken at our conference. Usually it's called speaker swag, and the speaker swag that we offer in our conference is shirts. All our staff get hats. I love hats. Anyone else here love hats? Awesome. All right. So staff gets hats, and of course, vendors and sponsors have a booth. They get nothing else. They're making money out of advertising, right? So what we will do as a course of this is when we are setting up our conference, we'll see how much money the attendees pay us, and out of which there is processing fees because they're using, let's say, different credit cards, and different credit cards charges different kinds of processing fees, right? So we'll calculate that. We'll calculate the number of t-shirts that we need to order because every speaker has a different size. So we'll actually accumulate all the sizes of the shirts that the speakers get. We'll see how many different kinds of hats, and hats, of course, should you not be aware, are of different sizes as well. I wear a small, medium, by the way. So in case anyone wants to give me a hat, small, medium, remember that. Right. So staff get hats. And of course, everyone gets a badge, an ID card to attend this conference. So it's very important that you have an ID card so we don't allow some random person to come in or an invalid attendee to come in, right? Every one of these, the attendee, speaker, staff, and vendor, although not displayed, are attendees. Think about it, right? A speaker is an attendee, they're attending the conference. But I've not laid it out like that. It is just to distinguish who's allowed. And I'm just sharing that all of these are attendees because they have badges. Okay. Now, the app itself, what are we doing? So we talked about that picture and we saw we have hats. So we have shirts for speakers, hats for the staff. And what we do is we display the hat counts that we need to order. We display the payment invoicing that when they pay us money, how much commissions do we have to pay back to the credit card companies? We display the number of badges. Everybody has a badge. And then we have two different things that we do as a part of our conference. We have raffles, where we have raffles of 3 different sessions that we raffle out and give them awards. And then there is a random winning session that we create. We randomize it. There's no voting. It's just a random number that we pick, and we award that session as the best session, right? That's, for simplicity's sake, that's what we did. So that's the code. And essentially what we go through is when we display the badge counts, for example, we create a string buffer message. I'm going to minimize this so you can see more of my screen. I'm basically creating a box, and it says, what is the participant type? And what is the count of the participants, the number of participants of that type, and then how many badges in total. That's what you're doing. The total number of badges is the total number of badges we get, right? And then shirts, of course, based upon the different kinds of speakers, I guess, preferences, we have different kinds of, different sizes of the shirts, and then we print them out in a summary. Same with hats. We print out the different kinds of hats that we have to order. And then we have the hat count. Once we have the hat count, we have the payment invoicing. So if you use American Express, for example, you charge a commission of 10 cents. Visa and MasterCard charge you 8 cents, and PayPal charges you 11 cents. This is just a random number that I picked up. Please do not quote me on this. And then we have raffle winners. So we have a pool of people who are allowed. As you can see from the pool on lines number 222, 224, and 226, only attendees, speakers, and vendors are allowed to participate in the raffle, right? We're not allowing the staff to participate in it. So we're picking up a few of our folk who attend the conference, and from them we choose a raffle of winners, right? And then based upon if they're an attendee, we basically print out something. If they're a speaker, we print something else out. And if they're a vendor sponsor, we print something else out. So we know who it is and who won this, right? And so what we do is the winner is an attendee, and then we find out how they paid us. If the winner is a speaker, we know what shirt size they have. And if the winner is a vendor sponsor, we determine which booth they are from, right? And if the person is not allowed, we actually throw an exception here, right? Simple stuff, basic. I guess if you're setting up a conference, these are pretty normal things to do. And then there's a random winning session. We basically go randomize and pick up a random integer out of the list of the sessions that we have, pick that particular session and print it out as, hey, this is the winning session, right? And then we have session details about the most voted session, and we show that out. It's again another random number, right? So that's the essence of what we're going to do in this whole app. We're not doing much. We're just taking a simple conference, building it out, and then displaying some numbers and showing how we do this in Java. So I'm just going to run this code real quick in my own console so you know how it works. And the fun begins afterwards. So bear with me. Okay, so let me just show you some of the outputs that we created. And I'm going to come back to the Cedar. I think I promised to tell you about the Cedar in a bit. But here, I created a conference. It's called the Mars Developer Summit for some odd reason. And it's being held on a plateau in Mars called Elysium Planitia. And then this is our staff. We have about 25 staff. And if we have all these 50 speakers, we have about 1,000 attendees. And these names are randomized. I did not create them. I'm going to show you how to create these in a minute.
I asked if I was one of the speakers.
Highly unlikely. I don't have a name directly, but I'll come back to that in a minute.
No, I saw you use Datafig.
I'm going to show you how you can create random data on your own without having to write any of this code, not using a database. And this changes every time. So there's going to be some amount of randomization. So be aware of that. Right? And then I have my vendor sponsors. I have some number of vendor sponsors, and these are the different kinds of sessions that got created for me. I did not create these sessions. They're all synthetic, faked. But I have 50 sessions because I have 50 speakers.
It's too bad they look like good sessions.
They do, they do. And then all attendees get an email, and the email, if you notice, is indented. Some of the lines are one tab out, where we say, here's the things, list of things to know. And then there's one tab out, and then you have some text, and then we tab back out, and then we have remaining text. Similarly, speakers get another email. Once again, notice that there is tabbing, and even every single line is tabbed once, and some lines are tabbed twice. I just wanted you to focus on this because I don't care so much about what it is displaying, but how we generate this in Java is more important for us. And then we have the number of shirts to order. We know we have 50 speakers, so we have 50 shirts and different preferences based on the speaker's choices. We have different sizes of the shirts, and we know how many counts we have to order. Similarly, for hats, we have 25 hats, and we know what size of hats to order. And then the payment processing, and then the badge count itself, which is formatted as a nice little table using Java, and that's what we created. And then we have the 3 raffle winners, and you notice that All three of them in this case are attendees, which is interesting. This is again random, so I don't make this up. And then the most voted session is by Charles Darwin. Anyone know who Charles Darwin is?
I think I've heard.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Great. So this is the output that we got. So everything we saw so far is pretty simple. We created a conference. We did something out. We made some calculations, etc. I hope if anyone has any questions about this, please let me know now. All good? All right. I took a lot of time demoing what the app does. So let's go back and start fixing some stuff. So the first thing you notice is all this code is written using Java 8. And there are a lot of yellow sections here called fix me's. And our job is to go fix those fix me's. So the first thing I want to do is, even before you start, a lot of you must have seen something similar to line number 26 if you work in Java, right? Where you create an integer object, not an integer primitive type, but an integer object, and you declare it like so. And when you do this, you're creating a box reference to an int primitive value. And this is actually no longer required in Java. As of now, it complains, but from a future version of Java, let's say Java 22 or 23, it'll actually start not compiling. It'll fail compilation. And the way to fix it is to no more box it, no more auto boxing for primitive data types when you convert them into objects. So that goes away. IntelliJ gives you a very cool feature, means of which it will remove the auto boxing, but I just want to show you how to do it manually. So you can simply remove it like so. And this is the better approach from going forward. When you create any kind of data type that maps to a primitive data type, do not box. No more casting is required, no more boxing.
Did I hear you say that they're not backward compatible? It'll break?
This will be a compilation error, yes. So
The old way of doing it will be a compilation error.
yes, it will become a compilation error. It may break backward compatibility.
What?
It may break backward compatibility.
It sounds like it's definitely, I mean, that's a major thing.
It is. And so, I mean, it'll still work. It's deprecated for now, but they are intending to remove this because it causes more problems than it fixes any issues.
Okay.
All right.
But they haven't targeted for what version.
They're
Yeah.
still talking about it being in a very soon future release of Java. It's not yet fixed when it is. However, if I were to use IntelliJ, if you notice the pop-up, the first pop-up tells you remove boxing, and you can use IntelliJ to remove boxing from your code automatically for you. So there are some helpful features that IDEs provide that help you fix that. Now, as we go through the fix me's, one of the things I will do is mark them as not fixing, or fixed. And when I move those, you notice IntelliJ decolored. I do all this using IntelliJ, and in IntelliJ you have, let us say, I'm just going to go once and show you how I set this up. So you're aware, I created these patterns for myself. There's a to-do, fix me, and hit pattern. Let me just open the fix me pattern real quick, edit it to show you what I do. So the colors are set by me. So anytime I create comments of a specific kind, they show up in a specific format. And you can do this for your IntelliJ as well. Awesome. Should anyone have any questions about setting this up, please do reach out to me. I can show you how to do this better. Awesome. So now let's go back to our fix me's real quick and start going over some things to fix for our code to make it more modern and convert it to a Java 21 application. I have 11 of these, and I'm going to try and cover these in 11 minutes or less. I'm kidding. It's going to take a longer. But the first thing we have to do is go to our Maven form. Should you work with a build tool such as Maven and you've set it up in IntelliJ, ideally you should not go and change IntelliJ module settings. Changing those will cause your application to look like it's working, but the next time you relaunch your application, your settings may go back to what the Maven settings were. So ideally, you should go change Maven and let IntelliJ figure out from Maven, or if you use Gradle from Gradle, those settings and those version numbers. So the first thing you want to do is change the project's properties itself to not use Java 2018-8, but use Java 21. Here, there are two ways in which you can do this. A lot of applications set it up where the properties themselves declare what the Maven compiler source on target should be. So we go change that to 21. Right? This is normal for a lot of applications where they set it up in the properties itself as to what version of Java they use. However, there are different ways in which people can do this. This is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is people would actually go to the Maven compiler plugin and in there set the source in the target. right? So both are equally valid. You choose your approach, but there is a benefit to doing this and a drawback to doing this. When you set your source and target in your compiler, you can also add compiler arguments. That's something that's missing when you do it as a property. However, when you do this, there may be other plugins that may require the Java version that would not know what to do. When you're in doubt, put it at both places, right? So that's one option, but choose carefully what plugins you use, and based upon that, determine whether you want the source and target to be set in the properties or in your compiler, right? So both work. So since it is set in both, just because I wanted to demonstrate that, I'm going to go change this to Java 21 as well. And I'm going to change this to fixed. And one thing that does tell us is to uncomment the enable preview compiler args. And that's a good hint. So I'm going to just take that hint and uncomment.
JDK 21 is already, GA.
Yeah.
Why do we need that unless we're doing like Java 22?
Yeah, that's a very great question. The question is, JDK 21 is already fully GA. Do I need to enable preview? And the answer is yes. So every Java version that comes out will have what is called preview features that are stuck with that version of Java, right? For if you use version X of Java and it had preview features, they will always stay preview forever as long as you move to the next version, unless you move to the next version of Java, right? So Java 21 has a set of preview features, and should you want to avail those, you will enable those.
So just for clarification, because the feature set in Java 21, they're not all final, but some of them are in preview or incubator mode.
Correct.
So that's why we do that.
Correct.
Not if, like we're using JDK 22, I've done the enable preview as well.
Correct. So the way Java works, and that's an excellent question, thank you, Mike, is in the past, Java would actually release with a few features that were well tested, and that's what you get to use. You were given a bundle, and that was a bundle you use. And should you want to upgrade, you would just wait for the next version of Java to come out and hope that they have the feature you want. If it had, great, you upgrade your version and you move on. However, with more modern versions of Java, there are preview features that are introduced, and these preview features allow you to experiment. They allow you to test out if this feature fits your needs or not. And if it does, you enable the preview and start using them. People who did not like the feature or found that it doesn't use what you want, then they can disable the preview or set it to default, which is disable, and continue as if that feature never existed. Now, developers who give feedback on these features allow the JDK developers to know whether this feature works or needs to be tweaked. And when JDK developers figure out that everything's okay, they remove the preview flag and make it a final feature for you to use in a future version of Java. That's how Java works, right? Great.
So, quick question.
Please.
Well,
Oh, when Scott asks, I'm going to say no.
That's a good question. The Maven compiler plugin version, is that something you let IntelliJ manage? Or is it possible, like, I might be running an old version that doesn't support 21, and how do I figure out what to set that to, that kind of thing?
Okay, great. So there are different ways in which Maven compiler plugin can be set in. You could manage it yourself, which is ideally the best way to do it. You can allow IntelliJ to manage it, which is actually not true. IntelliJ never manages it. IntelliJ runs the quick start that manages it. So the quick start archetype that Maven has provides a compiler plugin, but that plugin is ancient. So unless you're using a very old version of Java, you do not want to rely on that plugin. And it is always in the best interest and hygiene of your product to ensure that the plugins you use are at the versions you want to set them at. Rather than depend on some automated tool to generate that for you, always manually set it up and set the version number to what you want. Awesome, great questions. All right, any other questions? Are we good?
I want Barry. I want a Barry for asking the question.
I have no idea what he's talking
Okay. All right. Great. So we just changed the Java versions of this. We just made fix 1 of 11 fixes. So it's a lot we have to go through. So bear with me. Now, one of the things that happens is when you fix this code in Maven, and I go back to my module settings in IntelliJ, similar in I guess Eclipse has facets, you'll notice that this changed, but it is not actually true. This is still fake. You got to go fix it, by re-importing your Maven project, which sets your project to go and pick up the latest versions of IntelliJ. A lot of people miss this step. Please don't miss this step. Refresh your form file as soon as you make changes to it, so you don't break something else in the future. Right? That's a common. I think I have gone through this pitfall many times, and I'm just sharing this with you. Avoid that by just re-importing your Maven project. Great. So we fixed the code in fixmes, and if you notice, my fixmes would have reduced a bit. All my fixme zeros are now gone because I just fixed them. Right? So I'm going to go to fixme 1 now, and this is one of the cool features of Java. This was introduced in Java 9. And here's how I'm going to share. I'm going to claim more screen real estate. So let's take a look at line number 51. I have a map of string integer that's a short count map, and I'm calling a function or a method, as they call it in Java, to determine the short count. Right? Which is all great. I created a map. Why do I need the map reference? Because I've already called it a map elsewhere, and I know I'm getting a map. Do I need to declare it as a map? I don't. And one of the ways in which Java helps me do that is by using something that's very common in other programming languages, which is the use of a var, where my type is determined based upon the content that is being returned. And the only thing is, when you use a var, just be careful of the names, so people reading your code understand that it is a map and it's not something else. So naming is very important when it comes to using vars, but vars reduce the amount of code that shows on the screen, therefore increasing readability. So use vars as much as possible. Now, show of hands, can someone tell me how to fix line number 54? Anybody? Okay, that's a good answer. Anyone?
Which line, 55 or?
54. 55.
Okay. Like, what's wrong with the comment?
Yeah, let's fix the comment too. Why not?
Now, can
All right, so let me go do the same thing I did on line 51, and I'm going to change this to a var. Can someone tell me why this won't work once I type it correctly? How do I have that quickly?
Because now we don't have any type now.
Okay, we don't have any type of null. Any other answers? That's a good answer.
You can assign it to null as long as you give it a type, as long as you give it a directive.
Okay, why?
Because the compiler has to know the type at the time that it's defined.
Great. So var type is identified at runtime or compile time for that matter. And it is identified based upon the content you're returning to it, not based upon the name that I gave. Right? So a null cannot be used. And an easy fix for this is to do something very similar to what I did in 51, is to condense these two together. If I were to delete everything from here to say here, it gives me the exact same code as I had on line 51. I could do that. Now, why am I even showing this thing? IntelliJ offers you a much cooler way in which you can condense lines. And if I press the magic combination of Control-Shift-J, it actually condenses the lines for me. So use that feature, make your code faster, and avail of your IDEs. It's important. Awesome. So we fixed two fixmes, and the fixmes were to use vars. And hopefully you have a clue about how to use vars now. I mean, most of you probably have used it in other programming languages. Now Java has it as well. So now it's a bad word. Java also has it as of a few versions ago. Start using it. It's pretty useful, but be aware of the pitfalls and the caveats, right? Naming conventions matter. Do not declare nulls. I mean, it actually prevents null pointer exceptions because you can now no longer declare anything as null. If you declare it a var, and Scott's already making grimace.
Because I know the exceptions to that rule.
There are exceptions to that rule, but you can, for most part, avoid null pointer exceptions when you use vars.
Also, one point there though, just keep in mind that you don't want to get into a specific unnecessary syntactic sugar. Even that if the variable name is a map, even that the variable is a map, sometimes if you're reading too fast, you're not going to realize what the specific parameters of that map.
Fair point.
So it's just to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, your 2 cents are absolutely valid. And please do use the mic when you talk. It is because our other audience on YouTube needs to hear you as well. So thank you. Great point. And hopefully everyone did understand what was being said. All right, great. So we've covered two more fixmes. Let's go to the next fixme, which is quite interesting if you ask me. is we have payment invoicing, and we talked about how if you use American Express versus Visa, MasterCard versus PayPal, you charge different commissions. And here's the code syntax for it. I have a processing fee on line 187, and I go through a for loop of all my attendees and see how they pay. If they use whatever payment method they use, my processing fee is calculated based upon that. I add all those totals, and I print out the total processing fee that I'll have to pay across the board. This is my budget, sort of, on the processing fee. Now, this code is pretty verbose, where I've gone through each and every different kind of payment type I have, and based upon that, I'm setting the processing fee. I created a processing fee, then I increment it every time I encounter a processing fee of a specific kind, and then I print out my grand total. So there's an easy way to fix this, and this is the more modern syntax. And for that, I'm just gonna, just for comparison's sake, I'm gonna comment this code out so we can see how the new code looks like. Now, going forward, instead of me typing, fumbling, and getting embarrassed, and you all laughing at me, I'm going to do something simpler, avoid all this, and I'm going to use IntelliJ live templates, right? Live templates reduces the amount of code I have to write. It's just pre-written pieces of code that I've saved somewhere, and then I use some shortcuts, and then it just magically appear on the screen. You can't use this in production code, right? You can't magically configure code to show up. I just have already configured it because I've done it so many times. I just don't want to repeat myself. So with that, I'm going to show you how this magic works in case anyone is interested. But I'm just going to use my small syntax highlighters that I created. And here is the code. So let me just show the code that I created. So instead of me creating a processing fee and then, I guess, iterating over a for loop, finding out what they are, I just created a switch statement based upon the attendee payment type in the for loop. And based upon the payment type, I'm incrementing the processing fee. I did not write processing fee plus every time. I wrote it once. And I have case that returns or yields value to. So based upon Amex, it yields a value of whatever the commission for the American Express is, similar for Visa, similar for PayPal. Notice the number of lines reduced. It's much more easier to read, and I know exactly what this is doing. So readability improved. Not only did readability improve, performance also improves if you run this code. You can run this code and you'll notice that the switch case expression goes faster when you use this syntax. So use such syntaxes, which are much more easier to read going forward. Any questions on what we did here?
I think IDEA can convert.
So the suggestion is IntelliJ can actually convert this.
Yeah, I think that IDEA can convert old style to new style.
Old switch expressions to new. In some cases, yes, it can. In some complicated cases, it can. Just be aware. So I just showed you how to do it.
ChatGPT to do it.
ChatGPT can help. All right, so my fix me too is fixed. So let's go into.
One comment that you need. I assume you covered all the enum cases.
We will go through enum cases. We will. That's a great point. We will come to that.
Well, I noticed there was no default.
Yeah, it'll come to that in a minute. So are you asking about the payment types itself?
Yeah, there's no default.
Yeah. So great point. When you use enums for your switch case, and you use all your enums, you don't need a default in your switch case. As long as you have an exhaustive list of all the enums that you use, you don't need to provide a switch default value, right? And that's what we did here. We had 4 payment types, and we used all 4 payment types. Therefore, it's exhaustive. Therefore, I don't need a default. Great catch, but all right, great. So we did that. And then the next one is actually pretty interesting for those of you who use a lot of strings in your code and have indentations and stuff. If you notice when we ran this code, let me just go back to the output real quick. Somewhere in my code, I have the welcome emails, and these are the 2 emails you notice. And then email 1, which we send to attendees, I have a few tabs. And in the second one, I have more indentations. And this we do through code using, I'm going to go to the constants file to show you how it looks like. This is how we write this code typically, or wrote this code typically in Java, where we wrote a welcome in the first line, second line was appended with a new line character, and the third line onward, we had a new line character and a tab character associated with it. So we indented. It looked formatted, it came out okay, but when I'm reading the code, I have no clue what I did, right? If I'm just looking at this code in a hurry, it will take me a long time to figure out what I'm doing with with these strings. Now, this code obviously is not readable as a developer, but as an output, it looks great. So I'm going to show you the new way of doing this using text blocks. So if I were to replace this and once again use my cheat, I'm going to use a cheat here and create a simple text block. Just notice the difference. In the first one, I created all those slash n's and slash t's, versus in the second line of code, the second snippet of code, I don't have any of those. And the only difference is instead of it being in a single double quotes expression, I use a 3 double quote expression, and I started creating a welcome from some random line in there. Now, where I start this code does not matter. It's going to print from the beginning of the, display screen. What matters more is where the end quotes exist. So in line with the end code is where the screen will start printing from, or the console will start printing from, and that's how the snippet will appear when I print it out. And that's pretty cool and easy to read. As someone who's looking at the code, I know what's going on. As someone who sees the output, it will look the same. So it's very useful. There's a text block, and what matters is where your end of the 3 double quotes is. So just be aware of it. All right, so we did that. And the next one is even more interesting, where I have tabs starting from the beginning, right? And this is where we'll see where the double quotes matter. So I'm just going to go ahead and comment this code out, and I'll use another cheat here. So I further moved it out, indented it further out, but notice where my 3 double quotes are, and they are located here, and I have tabbed a little bit after that. So my tab spaces will begin from where the triple double quote exists, and so this much of space is where what will be added for every single line, right? So your indentations matter based upon the ending of the text block quotes, and that's what I wanted to show you. And we'll run this code after we convert it to Java 21, so we can verify that the output still looks similar. So I'm going to go fix this as done, and this is done. Okay. So the next one is where we're going to go take a look at our raffle winners. So we have raffle winners, and we went through a pool of attendee speakers and vendor sponsors, and we created random winners out of those using a random count. And those random counts, we determined if they were attendees, speakers, or vendor sponsors. And based upon if they were attendees, I printed something out, speaker, and vendor sponsor got some of the text printed out, right? And this is pretty verbose. And if they were not allowed to be in the conference, I actually threw out an exception. Once again, a lot of code, and I have to scroll in order to read this, and I can reduce all this using a new switch syntax in Java. So let's take a quick look. So I'm going to comment this code out, and I'm going to just do pattern matching. Replace all that verbose code with very simple pattern matching, where I know the person is the winners. And out of those, based upon each person that I'm allowing, if the person is of type attendee, I create a variable, a flow variable called attendee inline in the case statement, and I use it, and I can print out whatever I want. In case the switched object is of type speaker, I cast it into a speaker variable right there, flow variable, flow scope variable, and I print out or use that speaker variable to print out what I need to. And if it's a vendor sponsor, likewise, I do the same. And here I use a default. And if none of those match, that means this person is not allowed to be in the raffle, I actually throw an exception. And this is the syntax for using the new switch case instance, switch based upon types. And that is new in Java. It's pretty useful. And it has reduced all my verbose code that I commented out to these many lines. And it's much more easier to read and understand. So when you're looking at this code, the first thing you do is you find out what kind of a person this is. If it's an attendee or a speaker or a vendor sponsor, you create an instance. You're casting it inline. You're creating what's called a flow scope variable, and you are using that variable within the case statement. So simplifies your code, much more easier to read. No more instance objects, no more casting, everything taken care of for you. Right? So it's pretty useful. Any questions about the switch expressions? Please.
You said it's The switch case syntax is something that's new to Java, correct?
No. Switch case has always existed in Java. Its enhancements are new to Java.
Okay, how, in what way did you enhance it?
Okay, so a few enhancements we saw. One of them was a yield syntax where you could immediately return with an arrow or with a yield keyword, which allows you to return back a value and therefore make it a part of a switch expression rather than a statement. And the second one is where you're now using instance types in order to determine what to do with a certain value. So you're switching based upon the instance type. In the past, what you would do is you could not use the switch expression for this. You would in fact do an if and check the instance of individual objects and work on those. Now you can actually use them in a switch syntax. Very well. Awesome. So we fixed the fourth one. And from now on, it does get a bit more faster and easier. So let's go take a quick look at one of the easiest things to look at. Here is where I have a show null pointer exception, right? And if I were to uncomment this code in general in Java 8, it prints out something that is not easy to understand. You would not know where your null pointer is. But with Java 8, with Java 14 onwards, a null pointer exception is much more legible and you know exactly what it prints out. So let me quickly show you how it looks like in Java 21. So I'll just uncomment a section and show you the code for the null pointer exception. I created a fake conference, and this fake conference has a section which has a fake speaker whose first name is null, right? I created a speaker with a null first name, and I am just rendering out the speaker's first name length. How do I do this? I get the session, and from the session, I get the main speaker first name dot length. Ideally, by the time I reach first name, I should have thrown a null pointer exception because it doesn't exist, but I called the dot length on it. In older versions of Java, it would have just thrown a null pointer exception at this line, and I would not have known where the null pointer was. But in the more modern versions of Java, when I run this code real quick, you will notice it's going to throw a null pointer exception. And it tells me cannot invoke string.length because first name is null. So much more readable. So null pointers are much more enhanced in Java and use that to your advantage. I hope you never have null pointer exceptions, but if you do, they come out much more readable for you. So use that, right? So ensure that when you get a null pointer exception, read the whole message. It'll give you enough information about what is causing this null pointer exception. So I'm going to just go ahead and comment this code back out because I don't want to see null pointer exceptions in my code. Awesome. So that was number, yeah.
Note that this function is disabled by default because of some security issues can be. Right now, it's enabled or not? Because I'm not sure about this.
What is the question again? I'm sorry.
About an operator that show particular place where it's now.
Right.
Because it can be security issues. That's why this error message is disabled.
I'm not aware of that. I've not heard anything to that effect, and it seems to show.
I talked about this several years ago. It was like maybe it's.
Could have been in the passing, but I know for a fact that this is now visible. I'm running Java 21, and that's the message it shows.
I think I'm trying to think, there was versions where you had to specifically turn it off.
You had to turn it off.
It was 17 or 11.
Yeah, it was in an older version, but 21 supports it as far as I know. So I've not. Yeah. Awesome. So that was number 5. And number 6 is pretty important. So let's take a quick look at it. I have a session, and in my session, I have a session title, I have a session abstract, and I have a main speaker moderator. 3 different objects or 3 components to this object. I have a constructor, and I have just getters. It's an immutable object. I'm not mutating it anywhere. So there are no setters for this object. There's no way I can change whatever values I set once I create the session object. And I have a toString that prints this out. So all this verbose code just to create a holder object that has 3 values in it. And this is too much code. And what Java allows you to do is now use records instead. So I can actually go ahead and comment this entire 30 plus lines of code out, including the closing statement. And I can just create a record instance. And it's going to show me some errors, but I'm going to show you how it works in a minute. And this one line actually goes into 2 lines because there is a curly brace. that I extended on the next line. But this single line replaces all those 30 lines of code going forward. And you create a session title, a session abstract, and a main speaker moderator in one single line. It's like a data object in some programming languages. It's a struct in some other languages. What it does is it encompasses everything that you see above. It creates a constructor. It gives you getters. It gives you toString, equals, and hash code methods for you. So you don't have to do any of those. You just write this one line of code, and it takes care of everything for you. Records are effectively immutable. So remember the term. Records are effectively immutable. They're not immutable. So if you have containers in your records, you can change the contents of the containers, right? However, direct objects that you place are immutable, which means their address cannot be changed. So that's something you should remember. And that's what we're going to show here. So when I create this, there are two problems. And those are the two other fixed me's that we need to fix. You notice there is a fixed me to replace the record getter and replace to another getter pattern. So let's go fix those here. So I'm here. And if you notice, it says get main speaker. One thing you have to notice when you use records is it does not support the syntax of get. So there's no more a get prefix. And the new methods are simply called by the name of the attribute that you use. So I just create a main speaker moderator and it works. So there's no more need for you to add a get because the only thing a record offers is a getter. There's no separate, right? Similarly, we'll go change the other one as well. There are a few things we can change here, but I'm first going to change this. And that's a session title. It works with method references as well, as you can see. And then there's one more thing you can do is you don't need to do a collect and use a collectors.toList. Of course, there are debates about how to use this or not, but I'm just going to show you the syntax that Java allows you to do, which is directly call it toList method. Just be aware that this does not always do what you intend for it to do. It might actually create an object that you don't want. It creates an object that is an immutable resource source. So just be aware of that. Its behavior is slightly different from what you expect. So just be aware. The other place we need to change is again, there's a get session title, which I convert to a session title. And this fixes all of 6. So all my record related issues should be fixed now. And I think that's about it. So let's go take a quick look at one of the most interesting features that Java has introduced that I absolutely love. So I'm just going to go back to the picture real. So I have this code. I have an attendee. I can have an alumnus. I have a speaker. I have a staff, which I want to extend further to admin, security, front desk, etc. And I have a vendor sponsor that I don't want to extend. That's my hierarchy. But in my allowed person, the way I've written it, I have a public class allowed person. And I'm going to minimize this so I can see the other classes. I have a class attendee. I've minimized this. I have alumnus, which is an extension of attendee. I have a speaker that I don't want to allow extensions to. And then I have staff, which I can potentially extend, but I've not yet extended. And I have a vendor sponsor. And I was able to sneak in an invalid attendee. Nothing controls it. In older versions of Java, either your class was either fully open for extensions or completely disallowed extensions. There was no in between. There was no way in which you could say, I only want limited extensions for this. So it would either be a free for all or completely closed off to extensions. With more modern versions of Java, I think starting Java 15, there is an introduction of what's called a sealed class or a sealed interface, which can limit the scope of your extensions, but not allow you to go blindly extend as much as you want. So it's somewhere in between an open class, which allowed for free extensions, and a final class, which prevented all kinds of extension. And that's called a sealed class. How do we do this? We know, we've seen the picture, very quickly going back to the picture. We know what we want. We want to create this sort of a model. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert my allowed person to be a sealed class. And when I make it a sealed class, I have to make a few changes to it. Allowed person is now a sealed class, which means I have to permit a few class types that are allowed. What am I allowing? I'm going to allow attendee. Of course, I want attendees. Do I want speakers? I want speakers. Do I want staff? I want staff. If I can type. And do I want vendor sponsors? I want vendor sponsors. Right? However, what I don't want is that invalid attendee. I no longer want the invalid attendee to be an extension of my attendee because that doesn't make any sense. Now you'll notice squigglies, and we'll go fix these in a minute. So this is what sealed classes allows me to do. It limits the scope of my extension by me determining who my extensions are. So anything I declare in the permits clause is the only thing that's allowed to extend from this particular class and nothing else. So I've limited the scope of what is extended. Awesome, I did this. And it's going to show me some squigglies. So let's go see why these things are erroring up. So I'm going to minimize this a bit. And I'll go take a look at every one of these classes. And if you notice attendee, it says, hey, attendee, I know the font is too small, but it says attendee has to be sealed, non-sealed, or final. You have to make it one of those, otherwise it won't work. So one of the first things we know is attendee, of course, allows for an alumnus. So why not make it a sealed class as well? So I'm going to make this a sealed class, and I'm going to permit alumnus, if I can type.
Sealed before class.
Ah, that would be nice too. All right, so we did this. And now,
Permits with an S.
thank you, prompt-based programming. All right, that should work.
Maybe like a bracket symbol.
Unless I need to
This
put
permits
this.
have to be after. it's set?
Yeah. All right, there we go. So we now fixed two of those types, and now we made it a sealed class. And notice the, I guess alumnus no longer complains because alumnus itself is a final class. An extension of a sealed class can be final. It can be non-sealed, or it has to be somehow sealed itself. All right, so I made a final class, therefore this is fine. Now, speaker does not allow for any extensions, which means this class should be marked as final. And I am now saying speaker can only be final, it cannot be changed. And I don't know why it has a related problem, but we'll come to this in a minute. Right? It could be the IDE also sometimes misbehaving. And now, for staff, we know that in the future we want to extend it and we don't know how many extensions we have. Therefore, we want to mark it as open. The way we open back a class is mark it as non-sealed. So the moment I mark it as non-sealed, I'm saying, hey, be liberal, extend it as much as you want. And then vendor sponsored, once again, we want to make it final. We have no extensions for it. All is good. And notice now, line number 185 complains because it says this is not allowed in the sealed hierarchy. In fact, that's exactly the message it says. Invalid is not allowed in the sealed hierarchy. And the only way you can fix it is the magical developer way, which is to comment code out, right? And we commented this code out and everything works as fine. So everything is now fixed. So we created a sealed class, and you notice that seal has a hierarchy where you have to have either a sealed class, a final class, or a non-sealed class as its extension. And all these extensions have to be permitted in the main sealed class. One thing I've not shown you here that you should be aware of is you can also create a sealed interface hierarchy, right? Sealed interfaces hierarchies are awesome because they also allow records to become a part of your extension, right? A record cannot become a part of your sealed class extensions, but in a sealed interface, you can also add records as an extension. That's a super cool and nifty feature to be aware of. All right, so we fixed this. And then how much time do we have, Mike? We could go all night. I'm gonna.
Don't say that, please.
We don't install another speaker. Yes.
Yes, which is why I'm more concerned. I am mindful of that. I think we fixed this.
So we still have 5.
All right, if it is 5 minutes, let me just jump over something much more cooler and more modern in Java. Record patterns can wait, so I'm going to ignore this for now. I'm just going to jump to much more cooler features of Java real quick. All right, so the 3 things that I wanted to show you real quick was what is now possible with strings in Java. So we saw something about text blocks in the past, which was awesome. So let's go fix some real quick string patterns that we encountered in more modern versions of Java. So here I have some code where I have display head counts, and I collect the head counts from elsewhere. And then I have this line on line 174 that says head size, and I have this magical string concatenation that I do, where I have a plus head size that I got. And then I have the count where I go to the map, get the head size, and I print it out. This is horrible. I'm stepping in and out of the string so many times, and I'm concatenating so many strings. There has to be a better way to do it. And if I were to talk to some Java developer using an older version of Java, say Java 14, old. I'm talking about older versions of Java, not ancient versions of it. So Java 14, they would do something like, hey, why don't you just use a printf method, put some % string and get it printed out, which is super cool. But it's very confusing to read. And remember when I told you readability is important. So let's go fix that. In a way, it becomes more readable. So I'm going to comment this code out just so we have it for reference. And I'm going to use one of my magical syntax creators. And I'm going to have to import this real quick. All right. What did I do now? I created a string template. And the string template is a new feature introduced in Java. I think Java 21 is the first time it's been formalized. And I use a string template of raw, which means it is taking a raw string and it in itself has some variables that are declared as a part of the string that get replaced on the fly. So I have cat size that is a part of my string template and will be fixed with whatever variable it finds that matches that particular value. So here, if you notice, I have cat size. And I'm also able to go and operate upon the variables. It's not just a variable I'm printing. I actually can execute an expression and print its value. Here I have a map. In that map, I have a hat size that I'm getting from as a key, get its value and print that out. So I can perform a little bit of operation or execution within my template as well, which is super cool. It's reduced the amount of code I have to write. And it's more readable because I now understand what it's doing and what it's going to print out. And the way I have to print it out is to convert it to a string, and the way to convert it to a string is to call the process method on it. This is called a string template. It's new in Java 21, super cool feature. I highly recommend you start using and experimenting with it. That's one. So that's one of the ways in which string templates work, which is raw. Raw is awesome. Now there are two more string templates that I wanted to share with you, and there is one more string template that I wanted to show, and here, this is the most basic. I think I should have shown it to you in the opposite order. This one was the first one I should have shown. And then I should have shown that you could also use expressions, but we'll just convert this anyways. So we can save time on this. And this printed out exactly what we wanted because we got the count. And the other one, we were able to use expressions. So we did that as well. Awesome. So we did both. Second to last feature that I wanted to show you is the most cool kind of string template, which we first saw. Gibberish written on the screen, which printed out a nice little box for us. A lot of stuff that is not required to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this entire code out and show you a much more neater way of writing the same thing. And I am going to use the format template in Java. And I'm going to just format it myself because my formatter doesn't seem to like me. Give me a second. Awesome. So this is much more readable because what I'm doing here is instead of me writing all that left pad, right pad, I'm just creating a participant block and a count block, fixed number of characters. And you can count the number of characters, in fact. So if I were to count from here to here very quickly, if you notice at the bottom, it is 50 characters. So I have 50 characters, and that's what I had padded it with earlier in my previous section of code. And I'm actually doing it by physically giving it 50 spaces. And then for my strings, I set it for as a padding of 50 characters from the beginning. And I put the simple name of the speaker. And then for 6 characters, I print the size of whatever the count of the speakers are, etc. Right? So this will actually print out a tabulated version of the same content that I had with all that verbose message.appends that I created in the past. To use string format template is pretty useful as well. All right, so the last thing that I wanted to show you, which is the title of this presentation, is this code here, where I have my main method. When I'm newly introduced to Java and someone tells me to create a public static void main, my first reaction will be, what? Why do I have to do all? And you can get rid of all of this now and just type this instead, and your code still works. Void main. That is the title of our presentation. With that, thank you.
The title is the last thing you said.
Yes,
That's backwards. We have time for one question. Nope. Thank you, Chandra.
Thank you.
Oh, you got me all excited.
So I have to ask, John, when you, I've seen this done before, and like me, I can't do it. At least I haven't figured out how to do it. You highlight a bunch of code.
Yeah.
Right? And then you wanted to comment it out. What initiated you to do the double slash, the comment out this one?
Command slash.
Oh, command slash. Okay. Thank you.
So we did have a question. Okay, Mohammed is setting up.
Enable screen sharing.
Okay, here we go.
Like,
Oh, I'll get it.
We don't want to take it home with us.
I'm gonna give this.
And
Sure we
John,
do.
that was the point now that
Speaker yourself, you know.
I'm putting you there.
I suppose this is
My dependencies.
Yeah. So it should be smoother this time around.
Now, yeah, remember, you're still on YouTube,
Oh,
live.
okay.
So, right? Okay. Once again, I'm going to,
I mean, I can put it in front of it.
once again, I'm going to introduce Mohammed Mir, a mover and shaker at Drew University. And what you're going to prove to us now is that lightning can indeed strike twice. Ooh, nobody laughed at that. Lightning talk? Come on. Here you go.
I think this is the third time.
This is the second time that he's giving this talk.
Hopefully that works.
Or every time you hear it.
Okay, so hi, my name is Mohammed. I'm a math major here at university. I'm going to be talking about abstract syntax trees or ASTs. This is something I'm not really an expert in, but I have seen in some of the things that I'm interested in personally, and I would like to talk a little bit more about it. So let's get straight into it. Before I even get to abstract syntax trees, I think I have to talk about language, not just programming language, but languages in general. They have a structure or a syntax or grammar, right? You have to follow certain rules to create certain sentences. That's just how it is. And in English, and specifically linguistics, I don't know why the figures aren't showing. That's interesting. So I guess I'll put it. So you can see in the top right, that is a syntax tree for that sentence, the dog ate the bone. Now you can break down that entire sentence to a noun phrase and a verb phrase, and you further break those down. Break down those parts even more to determiners and nouns and verbs, etc. And that's a syntax tree in English. It lets you see the structure of a sentence. It can get really complicated really fast, as you can see with that expression right there. It's a lot. So just like English, programming languages also have to have syntax. And some of the things you have to sort of keep in mind when you're thinking about syntax and programming languages is stuff like literals, variables, objects, functions, and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So how can we sort of think about creating that grammar, right, for our programming languages? So let's go over something called a syntax diagram. So take a look at that expression. Well, before even that expression, on the very left, you see those diagrams, the arrows. We're going to say that an expression is a term by itself, or it's a term with addition or subtraction followed by another term, And that's an expression, or it can be followed with another addition, subtraction, followed by another term, etc. Now, what's a term? Well, we're saying a term is a factor now by itself, or it's going to be a factor with multiplication and division. And the same thing as it is with expression. Now, what's a factor? A factor is just an integer. So for that expression, 7 plus 5 times 2, the entire thing is an expression, and it has 2 terms, and you can further break down those parts even more. So let's see if it lets me. Okay, that one image to show it. So now we're going to go over something called a parser syntax tree. So remember when we saw those boxes right there, that might be a little tedious to do every time we do expressions. In linguistics, you also do the same. I think the term is called bracketing to determine what's the noun phrase, the noun, the verb, etc. So in general, you can come up with a parse tree or a syntax tree. So for this expression, 2 times 7 plus 3, we know what the expression is, we know what the terms are, we know what the factors are, and this is a representation of it graphically in a parse tree. Much more condensed, a lot less lines or boxes you have to draw around, but we can do one step better. We can abstract some of this information and make a structure known as that. It is a tree structure, so it imposes hierarchy. It's embedded within it. So even if we had parentheses around, 2 times 7, that this structure mentioning right now, this ASC structure, it would still be the same. Versus the parse tree, you would have to include the parentheses in there. So the ASC just abstracts all the information from the parse tree into a very concise format. So now we can formally go over what's a ASC or an abstract syntax tree. It's an intermediary representation of source code as a tree structure. Now, where is this used in computer science or in programming? It's primarily used in compilers, right? So what do I mean by that? I don't know why some of the images, apologies. But in a compiler, some of the steps that are taken before you get from your input code to your output code is you have your code. It undergoes something called a lexical analysis or tokenization, figuring out, what's the expression, what are the terms, what are the factors, and after that follows a syntax analysis, saying, okay, how can we use this, these tokens and the grammar of the input language and form an abstract syntax tree. From the AST, you go under some more circumstances in the compiler to optimize and stuff before you get to output code. But one of the key things is you can have your AST and you can just convert it back into your input code format. And that's what I really want to emphasize on and the use cases for that outside of compilers. So the one thing is static analysis. So with your AST structure, you can figure out, okay, how many times in a really large code base am I creating a class or invoking a certain method, or, how are my variable names, are they repetitive in any instances? The other thing you can use for, which I want to highlight, is code transformation. You can use code to modify code, which is, I think, really amazing. And ASTs allow you to do that. So you can programmatically manipulate an AST structure and hence manipulate your input code to something else. So hopefully next one, the animation should hopefully play. So, okay, the general idea, what am I talking about manipulating, AST structure? So I'm going to use JavaScript henceforth with this because they're really popular with ASTs. So in JavaScript, we have that expression right there. This evaluates the true, the literal true. You say you have this a lot in your code somewhere and you just want to replace it with the literal true, right? Maybe you have different emojis in there and, you can still navigate that, but let's just assume you just have that expression right there. And you could try to, control F and then replace it with true. That's that simple, right? But to do it with ASTs, well, let's talk about the AST structure. So for JavaScript, for this particular parser, this is the AST structure. It's typically represented in JSON format. And you can see, the call expression is in the expression statement, and it's has arguments with callee and arguments itself. And what our idea is, or what we're trying to do is, we're trying to just okay, some of the animations aren't playing. Apologies for that. But what we basically want to do is get rid of this entire thing, call this a literal, and add arguments to it saying raw value is literally true. And if you had different emojis in it, you can programmatically manipulate this expression right here. So if you had different emojis and they weren't panda emoji, you could manipulate that and change it to false wherever it is. So I'm going to show you some more concrete examples involving string concealing. So string concealing is just a technique to hide information that a string has instead of its raw literal form. So you can see I created this class right here, and I'm just encoding some of the information as hexadecimal and Unicode. You don't know what it's saying. Maybe you could figure out, right? It's not super hard to determine what it might say, but we can use this tool called an AST Explorer to accomplish that. So first we input our code right here, and then we say what our parser is. We're going to use Babel, and I don't know why that image is showing up so blurry, but here it says the raw value is Muhammad, or value right here is Muhammad, which is the literal value that's once you decode that hexadecimal base. It just turns out that in the code, this thing right here is what's actually being shown in the code. So what we would need to do somehow is go into our ASC structure. Everywhere we see a string literal, delete the extra key right there, which is exactly what we're doing over there in our ASC transformation. And once we apply that, this string literal becomes what we actually want it to be, and hence our entire code changes into, you know, what it is, unconcealing or deobfuscating the input code. So here's another, a little bit more complicated example, is with string array mapping. All the references to our array all the references to our strings are in an array. You can make this example much more complicated by introducing array shifts and encoding the strings, and I've seen that, but I'm not going to mention that here. But this makes it hard to determine, you know, what's going on. And the general idea is with our ASC structure and the knowledge we just gained is, okay, everywhere we see this array and its index right here, look it up in that array and replace it with that literally. You could put this into, you know, you could run this right and you could literally get what the output is, but what is this value literally, right? You could, you know, control F and replace, and you could do that manually, but how do you programmatically do that? What if you have a lot of these instances in your code? So that's what I'm trying to emphasize here. And similar thing, we put this into the AST Explorer, and we can see everywhere where that array is, we call it, it's a member expression. And what the name of that array is, you know, in the object, and the index is stored in the property as a numeric literal. So in this example right here, what we're doing is, okay, we store the actual array in the code, the name of it, and we copy and paste the array right here. And we're saying, okay, everywhere where there's a member expression, like here, and its name is array, get its index and look it up in this table or this array right here, and then replace that entire part with the string literal. But that's what we're doing right there. And you can see it outputs it as we expected. One key thing you would want to mention is just the way that we encoded this example. Console is typically console.log. You can use bracket notation to accomplish the same thing. But in this specific case, console is also a member expression. So you have to indicate this part right here where say what is the actual lookup name you're looking for. It's the array. If we didn't include this and we just replaced it with, you know, every member expression, this code wouldn't work because it would put, you know, it wouldn't know what the index is. Log isn't, you know, an index for array. You can't find what that information is. So that's another way of programmatically manipulating code. Another is string encryption. So you have, this is a Caesar cipher, a very simple example. So we have some string right here. We just need to apply the shift. And again, you could, you know, put this, run this function right there and then run this specific line where you get the output, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to do this more programmatically. So it's a similar concept with the member expressions, but this time it's just a call expression and it has keys with callees and arguments, and we're interested in some of those right there. and we do something very similar. We're looking for every call expression. We're looking for everywhere Caesar cipher is being called as the identifier. And then we're getting all the parameters of that in this mapping right here. And then we just call that function that we stored right here. You don't have to hard code define this right here. You could technically reference it within your ASC structure as you're going through your entire code. You could do that, but I just choose to hard code it manually here. And then doing the same thing, replacing all those instances with a string literal, and you can see it does exactly what we intended it to do. So all the examples that I've really given are very, very simple to understand. In that sense that I didn't encode anything else. I didn't rename variables to make it, more convoluted, right? So what if I, showed you something a bit more convoluted like this, right? This is supposed to be a video, but apparently it didn't do a good job in converting it. So this expression right here, it's a lot more lines to it, about 150 lines or so. And it's a lot really complicated. Just from this image you can see right here, a lot of weird variable names, a lot of loops going on. Like you're not really sure what this is doing. Maybe not want to run this into into your what's the word that I'm looking for? Into inspect element, basically into your console. So because you don't know what it might do, right? So you can get the ASC structure of it, and then you can use that to understand what's sort of going on, and you can make simplifications to this. And what this entire structure really just is, it's just this expression right here. That entire 150 lines. So it's just hello world. So you can see, in order to go from here to there, you use an ASC structure as well. You can go the opposite way. Instead of simplifying code, you can make it more complicated. So going the other way is also kind of fun and annoying to see how just from a few lines of code you go to like 150 lines.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah, this slide. It's an entire I can show you later.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, I'll take a look at it later.
But I used an online, obfuscator that's open source and all that. And
Oh, I know. Okay, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
I didn't do this myself because it'll be too much. But so why would you want to know all of this? Well, what's the use case specifically in the real world or even in the industry? Well, firstly, I want to say ASTs are used for simplifying and obfuscating code. It's a two-way street. You can make things harder or you can make things simpler. Now, why would you want to do either, right? Maybe simpler, you have your existing code base and you want to make some optimizations to it, but why would you want to make things harder to read, right? That's sort of counterintuitive. Well, there's companies like Cloudflare, F5, et cetera. These are security companies for the most part. They utilize ASCs to build JavaScript challenges. So what I mean is, when you go to a website, it mostly requires you to enable JavaScript to even use the website, right? And behind the scenes, there's a bunch of challenges that are going on that are being run to make sure that are you and real user, because that's a big problem in the internet today, because there's a lot of fake traffic. You can easily manipulate, traffic. So companies are interested in how many real users are visiting their website, interacting with their website, and all that sorts. So what these companies do, they make very sophisticated, very dynamic and challenges that are designed to be run by a JavaScript engine, but also using web APIs. So by encoding and in that information, your JavaScript files, you can hide, what web APIs you're using and make it harder for the users to understand what data you're collecting. By the way, these companies collect a lot of telemetry data to verify that you are actually a user. Besides these, compiler or programmatic challenges, right? Those challenges are introduced to prevent, sort of bad actors from figuring out what's this information this company is collecting, so I can, spoof it and get access to, whatever endpoint that I need to. So by making those challenges dynamic, they can get really, really, dynamic. You can create a virtual machine inside of a virtual machine and run your own custom operational code. It can get really complicated really fast, but the main idea is they use ASC structures to accomplish that. And yeah, I like to work backwards sometimes because I had a specific instance where I wanted to scrape data from this website and I kept on facing barriers. I was like, why can't I do this? I keep getting this challenge right here. And I try to figure it out, try to, manually work through the code. And then I realized this challenge is changing dynamically. And I realized, okay, they have to verify this somehow, right? So there has to be some sort of underlying structure. Perhaps I can understand that, what's a way to manipulate that information to simplify this complete jargon of, 10,000 lines or so. And for me, I think that's fun. Working backwards, I want to figure out how did this company get to this stage, and more so the reward of figuring out this puzzle in the very end. So that's what I wanted to present about, and these are the sources that I used. A lot of blogs, specifically number 7, Steak Enthusiast. I really got the inspiration from them. A lot of blogs relating to this, of how you take JavaScript code that's really not meant for users to understand, only for compilers or compilers to understand really. How do you make that into more readable code and figure out what's actually going on? So specific data, and that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. This AST Explorer,
Yeah.
Is that language specific for JavaScript?
No, so here's the best part. It's for every single, almost every single language. Every single language has to have an AST structure, right?
Yeah.
It's just the grammar that you might use might vary depending on the parser that you're using, right? So
Right,
for
right.
certain languages, multiple parsers, but almost every language I know of or I've seen is on AST Explorer, so you can choose.
Cool. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Mohammed. Yeah, absolutely.
right.
So rather than try to switch over and look at my slides at the end, I'm just going to.
Well, why don't you at least stand in front of the camera?
Okay, I can. All right. All right. It's been a long night. Nobody needs to see me. So just to wrap up, and I know it's been a long night, but it's been a fun night as well. We had, thanks to the 3 Drew University students who gave awesome talks, and lengthy talk, and of course to Chandra for his Void Main talk. That was pretty cool. So, I put in Twitter there the hashtag Chandra Guntur sighting as everybody's favorite hashtag. So, to wrap up, I'll just do my normal upcoming things. There is an event in progress that started yesterday, the Iara Cloud Hackathon. If you participate, you have a chance to win 3,000 British pounds. And this runs through the end of this month. Upcoming events, we have the Trenton Computer Festival this Saturday at the College of New Jersey from, I guess, 9 to 5 or thereabouts. There's a banquet afterwards. And also Friday is the IT Professional Conference. There are 14 talks, and I think everything's been restructured with the registration fees. So give that a look. I'll send an email out to everybody on my distribution list. The JD Conf is March 27th and 28th. It is virtual. And then, of course, DevNexus is April 9th to 11th. And there's also the Kansas City Developer Conference from June 26th to the 28th. Upcoming events for us, and I mentioned this earlier. So we have Venkat Subramaniam coming on Monday, April 1st. And if you've ever seen a Venkat presentation, you'll want to be here. So we are lucky enough that he was in town. I think he's going to speak at New York that week sometime. So he had availability on Monday. So the name of the talk is Transitioning Data Using the Functional APIs of Java. And this is actually a special start time at 7 p.m.
Oh, and this is the 3rd time he's visiting us.
At least, maybe even the 4th.
4th.
Maybe even the 4th, yeah. Once was virtual, it was during the pandemic, so.
And he was our first speaker.
I think so, yes. So he's awesome. He just spoke at the IntelliJ IDEA conference last week. So, and that was also virtual. You can find that on YouTube if you ever want to see it. We're working on a presentation for April 16th as well. So we'll have 2 meetings in April. And in May, still trying to get a final list from Billy Corando, who will be here on May 8th. He's also going to visit Philly and New York that same week. On June 11th, Mark Nelson, who's a friend of Doug Dreschel, who spoke last month, will present Making It Easy to Run Spring Boot Microservices in the Cloud securely and at scale with Oracle. So that's going on there. So that's all we have at the moment for that. And we're working on some other items, some other folks to come visit with us later in the year. The Friends of JUG, Wednesday the 27th is the Chicago Jug. Philly Jug was tonight with Mark Heckler. The New York JavaSIG is next Wednesday, and Frank Recco is going to speak on Gen AI for Java devs. And let's see, New England Jug will speak on Thursday. Ken Kusin will be presenting practical AI tools for Java developers. And the Kansas City Jug will have Marcus Helberg building a custom AI chatbot with Spring Boot, React, and Lang4j. All right, so with that, I know in my email I said we raffle off a license to IntelliJ IDEA, but we had 3 licenses available, and we're giving those to our speakers tonight, our students. So don't go anywhere yet. I have a T-shirt for you, Mohammed. And all right, and so so this is a way of saying thank you for taking making the time and effort to be with us here. We appreciate it. So we'll get some more licenses. We usually get them at the beginning of the month. So. But with that, I usually display my picture of 4 pints of beer, but I'm not going to do that tonight. So
Can you act them out?
no.
Are those other meetings, since you don't have the screenshots
Yes.
there, are they listed somewhere?
On the website. Yep, in the meetings tab, if you go in there, yeah, I have everything pretty much. So what, for the information we have now. So, yep. So, yeah, and by the way, yes, other than my emails, try to keep the website current as possible. So I'll turn things around for Venkat's talk sometime tomorrow. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you who joined us online. There was at least a handful of folks who joined us. Thank you for everybody coming out here, and we'll see you next month.